Welcome back to Lens Language. Today, I want to go over how to shotlist. How I will be going over this and breaking this down is there is a film that I'm currently writing and in the process of working on all the documentation and shot listing. And I want to go over a bit of the template and how I shot list it. And I'll go over a few other documents as well, just to showcase what I'm doing for the film, maybe prevising and just helping you overall to figure out how to go through your shot sequencing. All right, so we're in my Google Drive now. Yep. So the film will actually be called What to Wear. This is kind of like the poster for What to Wear, just to kind of give people an idea and give something excited to look at. It's obviously clothing texture, jeans, and we kind of have this zipper opening up to reveal the title of the film on a white, kind of minimalistic, modern-esque white, but we kind of bevel in the text and add shadow. I created this in Photoshop, so I can give you a tutorial on how I created this and manipulated certain PNG images or even JPEG images and masked out the genes, warped it, and then kind of beveled out this text on a white background if you all want. But this is kind of what I created. This is what I did. Over here kind of have themes, summaries, character bios, taglines, locations, so different spots, locations, and even within the locations, you can be in multiple spots in your location. So, for example, if you start at an apartment, you can have bathroom, rooms, living rooms, kitchens. So even mapping out the subsections of locations within the major locations, and then I also kind of mapped out the props in full, so just all the props that I'll need. But moving on to, and this is the script right here, but moving on to the shot listing documents. When we first started working on the shot list, I was working on it with my DP. So we sat down. I had printed out 2 scripts. I gave him a highlighter and I gave him a pen, and I had a highlighter and a pen. So we read through the entire script, made sure things, were kind of fluent, cohesive, and he gave me kind of his insight, maybe his, some of his discrepancies, and because there would be conflicts with some of the gear and achieving, I don't know, maybe certain shots, and maybe the blocking could be cut down. These are all things that you want to think about and that your DP should be looking at, because as the director, sometimes you'll be focusing a lot on the creative vision. I actually personally like being the DP a lot more, but I decided to try to take on a more of the directing role and try to sharpen up my writing skills and just improve on that facet. Um, but what we did was we sat down and we actually used. I didn't use the template that I have right here. I kind of just pulled out a different template. It had less details on it, but it was just to say the description of the shot, this shot number, so 1, 1.1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, the location, and yeah, that was all. So it wasn't as organized. The description kind of had everything. It had shots, angles, slightly what would be going on in the shot, the movement. Like it was all kind of grouped together. So, but I did that just to kind of vomit all of our ideas. You don't need to worry about too much of organization when you're actually just coming up with the stuff, because I believe that can hinder the process as well. So yeah, we just kind of vomited all that out. We got all the shots. We were thinking about shot sequence for making sure we were hitting certain story beats and certain story points when we came up with our shots. And what I did was I took those shots and I further organized it into this template right here, which I will dive into. And you can let me know in the comments if I should, I don't know, maybe drop the template somewhere. I can give you all this template because I made this template in Google Spreadsheets. But okay. So yeah, top, very, very top left. I did not care about making this bold or italics or anything. I just put Shotlist. But in the B column, and maybe like 2 or 3 columns down, I just wanted to incorporate some spacing. I didn't want it all to be shot list, location, table starts here, and it's all kind of bunched up. So I just to add spacing, I put location in the B column, and I put them in brackets. I put time, even if whether the time is shown or not. I believe time is a really important factor because it'll help your DP come up with consistency for lighting, and also come up with ideas for lighting, just to know, okay, well, I originally interpret the scene to be shot during the morning time frame because maybe he said something about breakfast. And again, if there's no other context in the scene besides what you have in your mind, like I wanted it to be a night, it was a joke. Why didn't you understand that? You just communicate that. Just put the time that you want this to be happening. And even if it's small time increments, it just helps people with like the pacing and the timing of how long things have passed. So maybe it could be midday 1 p.m. and then midday 1:30 p.m. So if you're shooting a slasher film and someone got stabbed at 1, if you see the body at 1:30, the blood won't be as red or already start to, I believe the term is oxidize, or when like oxygen starts hitting blood and, it starts to harden and turns into a darker maroon color, and it's no longer as like vibrant or as bold of a red anymore. Just keeping consistency. These are all just things to think about, and why it's important to have something as it seems as inconvenient and seems so pointless. Why do I have to care? But little things just help. But time in brackets, characters, and props. Yep, props for the scene. And then I go on to make my table for scene 1. So this was all just the details of scene 1, and I believe a scene changes every location that it changes. So at the beginning of the script, it starts with a younger brother walking into the older brother's room. Older brother's playing video games, he's distracting him, but then the older brother finds out that the younger brother has a crush. So he gets all excited, and the older brother ultimately ends up leaving the room, runs downstairs, runs out the house, and is going to get his friend so that he can come back and help them, get his little brother ready for his date or whatever. But scene 1 is only him in the room. Well, immediately once he leaves the room, and we cut to a shot of him running down the steps, that I've distinguished that as a new scene. Breaking down what I have in the table and this table is the same for every scene, but table 1, scene 1, I have the shot number. So make sure we're organized. Shot composition and shot angle. So this is very important because this is the framing and this is also the angle. I'll dive deeper into each one once I think I want to go through all of them first. So next is the movement. So how the camera will be moving. Then I have a description of what is going on in the shot. So capturing Danny's face down to his hands pushing controller buttons. I have the estimated lens. I put this because I wanted to kind of put emphasis on the focal length that I was going for. So, and also I had a talk with the DP about his gear. So I repeat these numerical values because these are the lenses that he has. It was like 100, 35, and 50. Those were the ones we were rolling with. So I would repeat those. I mainly put that to put emphasis on, as a DP, with my DP mindset, I was noticing we'll probably need 100 to capture this close up. I wouldn't want it to be distorted. I want it to be compressed. We really just want to focus on like the eyes and the hands, controller plus pressing the buttons, but also Yeah, I already mentioned the compression, distortion. If we went with a 16, we'd have to be really close to be distorted. We see a lot in the background. That's not what I was hoping to capture in this shot. And then we have frames per second. All of these are 24. Most time, 9 times out of 10 for what I was shooting, it'll be 24. But there are some slow mo shots. So for those shots, I did end up putting 60 frames per second. Or maybe I wanted something really slow. I would put 120 frames per second. Or maybe you're shooting something reality TV or commercial, so you'll just put 30 frames per second. It all just depends on what you're shooting. And depending on the shot, you might need a different frames per second. So I decided to go ahead and include that category just to keep the information consistent throughout so that I wouldn't come to a shot and put 60 frames per second without having the frames per second on every other shot. And now I'm like, I didn't even think to check because, I just didn't think to check. So I decided to keep it consistent. It's repetitive, but it's consistent. And then the rig. The rig is important because when we pull out this shot list and we're looking to move on to the next shot, I will know that I was going for what kind of look I'm going for. A lot of these shots were tripods. So when I say like tilt down or tracking, uh, the tilt down is a fixed movement on the tripod. So we're just tilting down. I don't want any kind of pans or movements. Ideally, I'm still flexible, but when I have this tracking shot of the flower moving, the description says flower moving in James's hand. So James is holding a flower and he's looking at it and maybe he's twirling it a bit. I don't expect the actor to be completely still. I don't want him, in a fully fixed. He's acting out this full scene. So when he's maybe looking at the flower, he pulls it out of his pocket as well. I want the camera to be very loose. There might not be, and how tight the shot is, because it's an ECU, he might need to compensate by panning a bit or, tilting a bit more, coming back down or readjusting, really following that movement. So I put tracking, but we're still on a tripod. So that's kind of the information I was portraying there. Some shots I'll have maybe tracking tilt down and it's handheld, or the rig is handheld. That's for specifically a handheld look. This one I want a smooth movement, but compensation. And this one I want a smooth movement, and it should just be a tilt down because our character is not moving, so we should have the blocking down. I want to backtrack a little bit too to talk about the importance of composition and angles. For this first shot, when I say capturing Danny's face down to his hands, pushing controller buttons, this close up, I want to give you kind of a frame of reference so that the camera will be framing me within these parameters, somewhere within these parameters. So it's not capturing a medium close up or even a mid shot, which gives you a bit more space. My DP, with freedom, with us discussing the 180 rule and kind of where the camera positions will be later on, and with a specific camera plot, he knows that we're going to get some kind of shot like this. And the camera will also be higher pointing down because it's a high angle. So he knows the camera will be somewhere in this region. I will communicate to him that when the camera tilts down and we kind of see him playing with the controller, the camera tilts from his face down to the controller. So that'll be the high angle. So it doesn't have to be too much of a high angle on the face. Again, this is when we start getting into inches and centimeters of where the camera is moving. As long as we get kind of like a general reference and frame, and then we go over previs, we go over blocking, and we practice a bit, there should be no issues. We now have just a frame of reference for each shot and some pretty good details. And then, so you can see that I have this line kind of breaking up. So the line, this is the composition, this is the angle. This one I noticed was an arc movement. I guess I'll go over the arc movement and the gimbal movement just a little bit. We have a gimbal setup. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then an arc movement, which is a movement that circles your character. So the camera and the character, the distance between them will not change, but you will kind of move around as if there was a circle around this character. And I believe the diameter is half the distance of the circle. So you'll be moving across the diameter because half the distance will be here and the other half will be behind them. And you'll just kind of follow this axis and just kind of go around them. And that's considered an arc movement. Shot of James behind Danny, behind Danny head moving to a shot of Danny face. So the shot will be a mid shot of James. So the camera will start back here and behind Danny's head. So it'll be a mid shot of James. James will be somewhere over there. The camera will be behind me. James will be framed in a mid shot, and then the camera will slowly arc around to a shot of Danny's face. And I'm Danny, so it'll come to a shot of Danny's face. That's the movement that we're going for. OTS mid shot. OTS kind of just shows that there will be a person in the foreground, which starts off as Danny in the foreground, out of focus, but then we kind of arc onto Danny's face. So that's kind of what that's signifying. And then at the bottom, I just kind of broke down how many shots are in this scene, because later on I'll start needing the details and I'll start needing to estimate how long each shot will take. And then, let's say I give a value, it's 20 minutes just to make the math easier for each shot. 9 times 2, 18, 0, that's 180 minutes. If it takes me 20 minutes to do each shot, I'm looking at 3 hours for one scene. So that's when you start breaking down, do I have 3 hours to shoot this one scene? Do I even have 3 hours to shoot this entire film? Do I need to cut shots? Do I need to rework shots? Do I need to rework the blocking? Do I need to work faster? Am I just not good enough to get this done? Or do we need to scrap the project? Don't scrap the project, but yeah, just you just got things that you need to start thinking about and looking at. Since most of this table is pretty similar, I don't think I need to go through all of it. Oh, I do want to talk about one thing that I did add within this template, and that is the shutter angle. So I put a 270 shutter angle for this scene because this is the scene where we flashback and it's James. The scene is James and Jasmine. Jasmine is James's crush. 11:15. So you notice how we went back in time earlier in the day, and the location is a park. So this is a flashback. My DP will notice the lighting will be a bit. It's outside though, so I don't plan it to be as warm as the other shot, and I want it to be dreamy. So this is why you kind of include all these details and the dreamy look with a 270-degree shutter angle when choosing your shutter speed for a film. For the most realistic look and most pleasing to the eyes, you want to double the shutter speed of your frames per second. So if I'm shooting 24 frames per second, that means I should be shooting 50, a shutter speed of 50. When my shutter speed is directly double the frames per second, that means I'm at a 180-degree shutter angle. And I believe that's because, I believe the value is because of film cameras. I would definitely recommend you looking this up, but I believe the value is because when we used to use film cameras, there wasn't option to just choose the shutter speed. It has something to do with how many times when it rotates, it's covering the shutter. So at 180, I think it would be like, it would block the shutter on two top of the circle. So boom. So when you get 24 frames per second, it was something along the lines with that. So if you take a 270-degree angle, you're now blocking the shutter at a less frequent rate. The equivalent would be 1/32 of a second. I just looked it up. These you don't have to know all those numbers, but the moral of the story is it gives you with a faster shutter speed, you get less motion blur. So when you lower the shutter speed and go at a 270-degree shutter angle, it makes it so that there's more motion blur, even more than considered like standard. So this gives kind of a dreamy look. Maybe if you're character is on drugs and you want them to be a bit fuzzy, it gives you a fuzzy look. Or if you want someone to yeah, they see the girl of their dreams. From my example, you're looking at the girl of your dreams, and this is like it feels like you're in heaven. It's all like flowy, and things are just so much more brighter. That's why I went with a 270-degree shutter angle. But yeah, so I included that one there. Cage is handheld. Um, yep, cage would be considered handheld for that shot. And yeah, I have some handhelds, some specific movements as well in some of these in this template. So tilt up, then pan left. I really, kind of if I get the details on the blocking, I want to put all the details that I can. So specifically, I know I'm going to tilt up first, then pan left. Uh, just to hit certain beats. But notice at the bottom, it says shots and scene, and I kind of have the shots and scene for each scene. How many shots are in the scene, so that at the bottom I can calculate how many shots I have in total and estimate just about how long it'll take to shoot this entire film. And then, based on location, because I'll actually be renting out the apartment, and the apartment, which I broke down earlier in the slides, include 3 of these kind of subset locations: the bedroom, the dining room, and the bathroom. So now I have to add all of these 3 values up, multiply it by how long it takes me each shot, and estimate how long it'll take to shoot. So that when I'm renting this place by the hour on Peerspace, I will, well, I can't get it for 2 hours if it takes us 4 hours to shoot this entire thing. So I'll be able to estimate that. And then the park shots would just be more of a scheduling thing, because we're going to shoot out at a public park. We already did the previs, and the previs is going out with, it doesn't even have to be the real actor, it doesn't have to be the real camera, but we did it with the real camera, and just going through the blocking and the shooting the entire film like we'd really be shooting it, but the wardrobe isn't right, timing doesn't have to be right at the day. It's just making sure that we get the MCU, the movements, recording the dialogue, and then I would cut it together to make sure it flows seamlessly, and that, if we come up with any problems that maybe we see during the shot, we can work it out a bit more. But yeah, so yeah, that was a quick breakdown on kind of how I shot list. If you wanted to understand kind of what details that I tackle, how you would go about shot listing, what are some things that you want to look at, kind of coming up with a brief PowerPoint too, to just give you certain visuals, certain details, props, locations, kind of just organizing that, making it look pretty. And yeah, all the details that you're looking for, the timing aspect of certain things, and just overall organizational skills. But yeah, hope that helped. If you want to see anything else, and take care.